And a very big aloha. Welcome to Talk Story, Maui's longest running talk show, 30 years. And I've got Greg LaGoy, the Executive Director of Hospice Maui, and you'll be celebrating 30 years.
In February.
In February. 30 somehow seems pretty big when you're talking about business and stuff, right? Doesn't it?
Seems that way.
Doesn't it seem big?
Mm-hmm.
Seems big to me. You know, it's like, well, I don't want to wait to celebrate till 50 years in broadcasting. You know, that's too much. Yeah. So anyway, we're celebrating a lot of things today, but the main thing we're going to talk about is Greg and Hospice and the Dine Out event. The Dine Out event is celebrating 10 years. Hospice Maui Dine Out is a wonderful idea, and I'm always impressed at how well you get these wonderful restaurants and people who support you. And I know through the year there's certain nonprofits and groups that like to support you as well as other things. So you get nice gifts and support from organizations. But this is your big fundraiser, isn't it?
Well, you know, what it is, November is both National Hospice Month, and it's also the birthday month for Hospice Maui. November 16th, 1981 was our date of incorporation.
Wow.
So it also turns out to be one of the very slowest months for the restaurant business.
I didn't know that.
And Tuesday is the slowest night of the week typically for the restaurant business. And so we thought if we held an event on a Tuesday evening in November and put efforts like this into driving business to the restaurants that night, maybe they would share a portion of their proceeds with us.
And you know what? It was a great idea. And there's so many wonderful restaurants that I love that are on this list. It's coming up next Tuesday, November 12th. We originally
Week
talked
from
about
today.
And originally said, well, do you want to come in on that Tuesday? And you said, well, no, that's the day we're really busy out there going out and dine. You all participate and go out and dine out on that day.
We're not just participants, we're ambassadors.
You are.
Right, so we go out and we talk to the maitre d' or the manager or the chef or whoever the lead role in that particular restaurant is, and whether it's our staff or one of our board members, and we thank them for participating in this and answer any questions they have. And basically it's a show of gratitude and that we take it seriously enough to want to make a personal appearance to thank them.
And isn't it nice to have that one-on-one? It's so nice to be able to talk to someone and say thank you and have them know that you are there and to get feedback, you know, from them, you know, because they let you know. It's like, oh, yeah, we've been having a lot of people stop by, and it's like
That's right,
a great chance. Yeah. So what we're going to do today is go down the list of restaurants. And I know a lot of you are driving or you can't listen and absorb all of these because there's so many restaurants involved. Is it 34 this year, 33, 34?
32 or 33, I think, yeah, in each. So we would probably do them by area.
It goes by area, yeah. But I do want to suggest that people can go to your website, and you're listing them all there on your website.
That's right.
HospiceMaui.org.
Correct.
HospiceMaui.org. And let's start with Central Maui since we're right here in Central Maui ourselves. Pretty much, Wailuku.
This year in Central Maui, we've got Bistro Casanova.
Yay.
Brigit and Bernard's Garden Cafe. Cupies Maui. The Kitchen Café. McDonald's of Kahului. Tin Roof. And the Mill House out in Waikapu.
Nice restaurants. I like that Mill House. I go there a lot. I love that, and I love Bistro Casanova. Do you try to, because you're so busy with work, do you try to go to the Central Maui location because your hospice is pretty much Central Maui?
What I do is go where my social director, my wife, has arranged with friends based upon conversations that are often above my pay grade.
That's very good. I like that, social director. Another group of wonderful restaurants, and again, many of these friends of mine, South Maui, I love Five Palms Restaurant. Go there quite often. Of course, that's a lovely view. It's a nice, when you go there, you almost feel like you're on vacation. You know, it's because you got the ocean view and all the grass. You know, it's just such a pretty view.
And everyone sitting around you is on vacation.
Pretty much. And Coconuts Fish Cafe, and I've never been there. Have you been to Coconuts? I don't know that
I've
one.
not, but I understand they have 2 locations, and both locations are a part of our fundraiser. One is in Azeka, and the other is at the Kamaole Shopping Center.
Nice. Monkeypod, another very popular place, but I know it's hard to believe. I have never been to Monkeypod.
I've been there. It's very impressive.
Yeah, I've heard it's excellent. It's got many awards.
Mm-hmm.
Peter Merriman, and Peter Merriman, right? And one of mine, I have gone quite often to, Monsoon India.
Monsoon India. We train volunteers for patient care respite, so that we can have a volunteer who will go into a home and allow the caregiver, the family member, to get away, to do errands, whatever. And so we train once a year. It's a really powerful training, 35 hours of training.
Oh, my.
And we just graduated a class at the end of September, and everybody in that class decided they wanted to have a get-together for Dine Out, and they are all going to Monsoon, India.
Isn't that wonderful? Well, they've got great vegetarian food. Of course, again, another oceanfront restaurant there. It's got some good pupus, too. Nalu's a very popular place, South Shore Grill there. Really great music. Now, do you know if Nalu's is nighttime or is it daytime? Do you know what the breakdown is on that? Because Nalu's is very busy at night.
We used to have the restaurants commit to a particular meal period or multiple. There were places that would do breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we've changed that. We have said that just make it the day, and then it's up to them how they want to, allocate what part of what. It's completely up to them.
Well, that's good. Makes it easier.
I would say go anytime, because if they see their business soaring, regardless of whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, then that's going to make for a successful partnership between Hospice Maui and the restaurant.
There's another one that's pretty popular. Again, I haven't had a chance to go out there, Pita Paradise in Wailea. And then there's also Three's Bar and Grill, another place that very well known for music.
So that's quite a few in the Kihei.
Well, it makes sense. There's a lot of people in South Kihei and a lot of good restaurants over there. And then, of course, I like, not quite as many in UpCountry and Paia, because you break that into one category.
But we've got a good selection.
A very good selection.
We've got Café Mambo.
Have you been there? I've never been there.
I've not been to Café
I've
Mambo.
heard good things about it.
Is that in Paia?
No, I think it's up towards Haiku or something, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well, boy, I'll have to Google map it.
Café Mambo. Puzzle. Casanova's, of course.
Years and years
Colleen's
and years.
Restaurant and Bar, that's over in Haiku
right,
Cannery.
In Haiku, yeah.
Flatbread Company down in Paia.
Yeah.
Kula Bistro.
I hear wonderful things about Kula. Do you live up country?
I do. I live in Lower Kula.
So you've probably gone to Kula
I
Bistro.
have.
Yeah.
And Polly's.
Of
Polly's
course.
been around a very long time.
Oh, yeah. We love Polly's. And then there is West Maui, which is out of all of our groups, the most restaurants you have are in West Maui, which is very interesting to me. Because, usually we think of sometimes West Maui as visitors.
Well,
but,
I think it largely is visitors. But I think visitors like to listen to your radio show, they keep an eye on what's going on locally. And
That's
so
true.
I think that they probably find themselves busier on this Dine Out for Hospice Maui date than they would otherwise.
And I know one restaurant that we've always seen the support from is Peter Elman, Frida's Mexican Beach House Restaurant in there again, and Honu, right next to it there. We've
got Cane and Canoe.
Down the hatch, I haven't been to. That's new. And Leoda's, everyone. Oh my gosh, I hear such great things about that pie shop.
Yeah, I do too. We once had a development director who was helping to put this on, and she would eat breakfast at Leoda's.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Kitchen and pie shop.
I remember. Then there's McDonald's of Lahaina, and
Maui Brewing Company in Lahaina.
Oh yeah, that's big. And Merriman's, couple of beautiful view there.
It's a nice spot.
Very nice way to go.
Very nice spot.
And you know what? You go out there, make it a nice dinner or pauhana time, that beautiful, beautiful point overlooking it. Nice treat, huh? Pie Artisan Pizzeria. And a little higher up, Roy's Polli.
Right.
And then Teddy's Bigger Burger.
Yep. That's, I didn't count all those, but I think
it's a lot.
I think it's about 32 of them.
So this is the fun thing. This is what we say is a win-win-win. It's a win for you because you get to go out to a restaurant that you normally probably wouldn't go out to, especially on a Tuesday.
On a Tuesday, that's right.
And it's a win for the restaurant because it's a slow time of year and a slow time of week. And it's a win for hospice because you're kindly given funds from these wonderful restaurants to help support Hospice Maui. So, again, go to hospicemaui.org and get all the information. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit now. It's been coming up on 30 years you've been there. And I have to say, I really sometimes wonder how, being in it for the long run is always hard in any job, but being in it for the long run as executive director of hospice has got to have certain elements that you've developed over your 30 years there to give you the strength to survive and get through in sometimes challenging situations. Now, over the 30 years, you've had some challenging situations. Some have been financially. Some have been about trying to get permits and growth. I know you've went through that a lot before you built your hall layout. And then there was another group that came in, so you had to kind of think about that. That came up. And then it's just the human element of trying to be present and aware and be the captain of the ship when you have a lot of really trying emotional situations that everyone around you are having to face. Probably in your particular situation of work, more than anything else except for hospitals and maybe Halemakua. So it's got to be an interesting way you dealt with or find a way over the 30 years to be able to be steady and survive 30 years.
One of the things that makes that easier than it sounds, because from what you're saying, of course, it sounds extremely challenging. And I would not say that it has been extremely challenging. And the reason is because the kind of work that Hospice Maui does, which is caring for people in their last days, weeks, or months of life, it attracts people to the work who have some sort of natural inclination. They're in some ways wired to do it. And that means that typically the balancing point between being self-centered and being other-centered is more toward being other-centered. And so it's easier to communicate larger needs if someone's sense of wanting to have something their way is not quite as strong. And so the kinds of challenges that I think are typical in businesses are in some ways a little bit less strongly manifested in hospice. Now, that does require keeping the mission in focus because, of course, I know of hospices where there's all kinds of difficulties and HR problems and stuff, particularly on the mainland. But it's because the focus is more on the hospice as a business, and ours is not. Ours is on hospice as a philosophy, a concept, as a core mission. And in my opinion, good business can be developed from that, where the money is a reward, but your focus is not that. Your focus is on the mission. So, we're a nonprofit. We're a grassroots community. So it's a volunteer board of directors that is in charge, and they hire the executive director, and that's been me for almost 30 years. Before me, there was only one other, and she was almost 10 years. And the maintaining a very strong mission-centric focus and bringing that constantly into the staff through particular classes or exercises or communications helps keep the focus away from trite things. So it really does make a difference. When people have their mind thinking about, the fact that the next door neighbor's dog was too loud or whatever, and if that's really the center of their conversation, it's quite different than moving that conversation toward something that we're having to work extra hard at because there's challenges in a patient's house and the person's dying and their family is around them struggling with that, and it's very sobering.
It's also got to be where you put your attention and priorities and your intention and your priorities. So what is the mission, and how often do you have to kind of bring yourself back to that as your compass?
Well, the mission is to assist people who are struggling with an incurable and progressive illness, and they're in the last few months, weeks, or days of their life, to keep them comfortable and provide as much dignity as possible, to help with communication, symptom control, whatever's needed, equipment, medicines, nursing visits, social work visits, chaplain visits. The nursing visits includes aides as well as RNs. So the focus of the care is clearly defined in terms of what those people are doing every day. But there's a larger purpose, and that is that, the process of dying, this is interesting, because I asked myself a question when I first got there. I thought, well, let's see. I'm not at the bedside. I'm supporting in the administrative way everything that needs to be done. What's my focus so that I feel like I'm doing something worthwhile? And I realized that the process of dying at home has some singular opportunities for people to grow and develop in their insight into life, to be inspired, to find courage in themselves and endurance and tolerance and a lot of wonderful things. And that if death doesn't happen in the home, if it's just an institutionalized event that's out of sight, people don't have that opportunity to grow into that. That richness then doesn't come into the community. So ultimately, I see our organization as bringing a depth of richness into this community, one patient at a time. And of course, we've served thousands of patients and tens of thousands of family members over the years that I've been here. And that slowly, incrementally deepens people's appreciation for life, because the sense of time, the sense of, gee, we have as long as we have to do whatever, so we don't have to be serious about the present moment. And then, when someone only has a few days or a few weeks left, there is only the present moment. You have to be very serious about it. Mm-hmm. So we bring that back to staff. At least every 2 months, we have a program that we run continuously and have for decades. It's called Compassionate Care of the Dying. The idea is that there are individuals in North America, really. One Canadian that I know of, Stephen Jenkinson, and a couple of well-known Americans, Frank Ostaseski and Joan Halifax. These folks have written and lectured and taught workshops for years on the sort of most gripping aspects of working with dying people. And that is, compassion is something that arises naturally when someone is facing an individual who is in distress. If they can do something about it to fix it, then maybe the compassion isn't there so much because they get to feel good about doing. But in hospice, there's often no doing to be done. So then all you can bring is your presence.
That is such a great gift and way of describing it. Lateness. I was swimming in my pool, and a beetle had gotten stuck on that thing that goes around the little type. There's a filter, it has a little white tube, and it's floating on this and having a hard time because it's getting closer going under the water. So, of course, I want to help the beetle, right? So I get the beetle, try to help him out. He falls, try to help him fall. Finally get him out of the pool. I'm going, oh, I feel good. I saved a beetle's life, right? Mm-hmm. Not the beetle. And then I'm getting out of the pool, I'm walking, and I feel something on my foot.
You stepped on it.
I stepped on the beetle.
By accident.
By accident. I'm looking at it. I saved this. Can I save the beetle now? And it's like, oh my gosh! And it's
maybe that beetle had an appointment.
I know. It was like,
and you tried to prevent it from meeting its appointment.
I tried to feel good about it. Instead, I feel bad about it because I end up stepping on the beetle rather than saving his life. I kill the beetle. But there's such an amazing part that is out of people's control in this process, and
like most of it is out of people's control.
And for people who like to think that their safety and control are in that act, there's such an amazing experience that happens when people have to let go. And some people you've seen over the years, family members, etc., or the people going through it, have a very hard time on just allowing the process to happen. And then you see others that are totally at peace with it. It's got to be a very amazing, interesting process to see who can allow that presence and being in that moment, or those who try to control it, or family members who fight it. You've seen the whole gamut of that over the years.
That's right.
And I know we've talked before. You had a show here for a while in the mornings, and I was so impressed with the people you have. Some have moved on, some have actually retired, but they do talk about the 5 wishes.
That's Frank Ostaseski's work.
And
wait, excuse me. No, the 5 wishes is is like a living will. It's like an advanced directive form.
Right, and it's something that sometimes people have a hard time doing, because it's facing those things that you don't want to face. But at the same time, you've seen people who are at the point where they can't necessarily communicate their wishes, and the other family members decide their wishes, and it can be very painful,
very contentious on occasion.
You've seen it be very contentious, because sometimes people do not want what the patient wants. The patient may be very willing to go and to just move on, and to let the body go. They don't want the pain. They don't want to go through any more. They've gone through enough. And you see that, and that's very hard when you see someone at that point where they've gone through so much. Some have fought this disease for years and years, 3 years or something, And at that point, then it's just like, well, but then if there are people around them that are, begging them to hold on or not allowing them to, or that maybe there's a do not resuscitate that the patient would like, but it hasn't been put down in writing. So you have to follow. At that point, you have no control. And it's a very difficult situation when you're put in those situations, when you know that the patient wants something, but that there's someone else who is inflicting their particular wishes upon that person.
It can be very difficult. One of the interesting things, I heard a story. There was a meeting of an interfaith ministers meeting. This is a very long time ago, like probably 25 years ago. And there was a little bit of strife going on because there was a man, an elderly man of Japanese ancestry, had died of natural causes. He had been raised Buddhist and had been a practicing Buddhist with his entire family until probably the last 4 or 5 years of his life. And then he had become a Christian, and he was very involved in his church. And according to the pastor of that church, had been very clear about the funeral ceremony that he wanted, and hymns and all the various things that went along with it. And the congregation who knew him was close to him, and they were looking forward to celebrating that. But his family, who had been with him with his life before that, where he had been practicing as a Buddhist, they were all still very close to their Buddhist faith, and they had like decades and decades of him as a Buddhist with them, and they were the ones who could make the decision because they were the family.
Wow.
And so when he died, he was cremated and given a Buddhist ceremony, and the people who were the Christian group who didn't get what they thought they were going to get at all with him were very upset by that. And I heard this was a kind of a hot discussion in this group, and I thought this could be a good place to step in. So I stepped in and I said, one of the things that we see in hospice care is that the person who's dying one of the things that they're losing is they're losing the ability to do something, to give, to act in some way to support, help, or in some way be of substantial service to the people that they love. And oftentimes people's wishes for how they want their end of their life to go and the decisions they would make, what we see is that when they actually get in the situation, they're not nearly so interested in what they thought they wanted because they don't care anymore. It doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is what can they still give to their family? What gift can they give? Even if it's just their dying is a gift, how can that give? And I suggested to these ministers that if we could have a conversation with that person's spirit as he was dying and no longer able to voice his wishes, we may well find that the ceremony, his funeral, his memorial service, not going the way he had wanted, would be a far, far smaller issue for him than we're thinking it is right now. And his ability to give something to his family is a much larger issue for him. And that he may well have decided in the end to do that, and we don't know. And so what do we tell ourselves? What kind of story do we want to live with? Do we want to live with a story of someone whose last wish was just thrown away, or someone whose last wish really was an expression of love for the people who he had lived with and supported and been supported by for decades and decades? We get to write that because we don't know the truth. So be careful which story we write.
See, then that goes back again to what you say is where your priorities are.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most important priority? And it's so very true what you said. It's a very powerful and true thing. I mean, I know someone who's my significant other, and he says, when I die, I do not want a ceremony. I don't want a memorial service. I don't want a funeral service. And that's pretty, it's like, okay, but there's people around you that are going to want to have a service,
But see, the service is something that the people do. The family does
exactly,
that. It's got nothing to do with the person
exactly,
who died.
and that's what it comes down to.
Totally down to
I had
that.
a very dear friend, Bob Stone, who died last year, and it was very, very sad to me because his family, he had a sister come out. He had been diagnosed with cancer, but his people around him refused to admit, even after he was diagnosed with it, that he had cancer. And they were convinced that they could cure him, convinced that they could use natural herbs or whatever and not use any chemotherapy or radiation, whatever. And they kind of took over. And all the time, I suggested at one point, because it was very obvious when I saw him, he had lost 40 pounds and was having a hard time walking. And I knew, it's like, wow. And he knew. And I said, what about having hospice come in at this time, because he was having a hard time? And I got yelled at so bad. I mean, people freaked out. Don't you dare ever say that word. Don't you ever bring that up. Saying, because he at that time couldn't even talk much. That would kill him if you say hospice to him. That would be the end. It's like, whoa. It was like, and here, I know
people often don't realize that when a person is dying, they know it.
Yeah.
They know it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize that every single body that was born dies. That's just how it works. Just like every leaf goes brown.
These people could not handle admitting it. And then when he died without any of the pain medications or a hospice worker, and he did die rather rapidly after that, because after diagnosis, I think it was 3 months afterwards. And I still feel bad that he had to go without any kind of help or pain medication. And he had to do it because the people around him refused to admit that he was dying, although it was so obvious. But that denial in other people it wrenches at my heart that people can't just see and admit and then do what's really best, rather than being able to think in their mind that they can change things. They can use holistic, they can use this herb. They were going from herbs to herbs, and I'm going, oh my gosh, okay, and then they have to live with the guilt. I don't know if they ever will, even because they were so, like, shocked that it happened after, it was so obvious.
People are capable of telling themselves stories that make everything okay. And keep in mind that that's true for the patient as well.
That's true. You're right.
He knew what was going on,
Yeah.
and that may have been his gift to them.
You know what? You could be very right. You could be very right. Because I took him out for his birthday, and he died a month later, and that's when I saw him. And and I said, well, let's, because they were, his sister was there. And I said, well, let's see you getting better. And he just looked at me and grabbed my arm and looked at me like, I'm not going to be around next year. Didn't say a word, but I knew. And it's like, okay. And I think you're probably right. But there is this other dynamic in the living and dying process. And I love what Joan does. Joan Halifax has in New Mexico at her Zen Center. She actually,
Paia Center.
Yeah. She actually helps people, in an interesting way. Of course, it's Buddhism, but she's a very good speaker on this. And there's many people. I think Ram Dass directs his attention towards this too, because he's almost come close to dying a few times this last year. And there were so many people around him still not ready for him to go because they love him so much, right? And I think he allowed himself to stay on longer for them, right? And so there is this interesting give and take that is so powerful that happens. And now you have your Holly there. That's been, 3 years now that you've had your Holly?
Yep, just 3 years this month.
And so now it's not just in a home. You're seeing it right in your backyard, literally right there. So although before it could have been in homes, you're seeing people go through that final moment right there. And how many rooms do you have?
We have 5 rooms, and in the 12 months that ended June 30th, we had 104 people come into our hale.
Wow. That's a lot. That's a lot.
When you consider that there are 950 deaths on Maui a year, that's more than 10% of them.
Another friend of mine, Cynthia Clark, passed away there last year. And there were so many people around her. Amy Hanaili Gilliam came and sang to her in the bed there. There were people just giving so much love that the people who are there in the process must see so much that they could really teach people from the good experiences that happen, right? And how can you say it's a good experience when someone's dying? Well, it seemed like in that case, from what I could tell.
Why would someone assume that it's not? It's a natural part of life. I think everybody, when their body starts dying, gets that picture. They figure, well, this really isn't a surprise because this is what happens to everybody. And it's only people who haven't really made peace with the reality of how life works. That another question that comes up, is it possible to work toward healing a disease process and still accept the possibility of death, so that the conflict of let's try this herb, as you put it, try that, try this treatment, try that treatment. Can you do that and not have
the attachment to
anxiety?
The outcome?
Yes, anxiety about the word hospice or the fact that this person may well die. Can you do everything possible, hoping that it works, and not be surprised when it doesn't, and not sacrifice comfort for the measures to extend life?
There's so much education needed in this subject, but still a lot of people, I've done the CD, I did the book, but, and that can't even begin to encompass it, because there are some interesting Facebook groups about hospice, and your people who go through training are really understanding how important their role is. But it's also a very hard role as far as burnout and what you can handle. So
how do you know that?
Well, I guess I'm assuming because it's what you're going through is very emotional, and what they're seeing is emotional, that it would be hard to.
But what if a person, their particular world has a lot of emotional intensity to it, and they're at peace with emotional intensity, so that the fact that they're super high one minute and feeling the intense pain of loss of someone they've just come to know and feel close to the next minute, that, or to witness a family member who after decades of being connected with someone is suddenly not connected to them because that person's body has died. What makes that supposedly negative or leads to burnout? See, I don't think that that's necessarily true.
Well, you might be right. I would just guess, I'm guessing that the pain, seeing that pain of someone who's been with someone for some of your people.
Only if you run from it, and only if you describe it as pain. In other words, if you see someone going through the intensity of grief, and you can hold pure compassion for whatever that person is going through, it doesn't have to be something that you want to shut off, run from, close down, and then it doesn't burn you out because it's not like a demon chasing you. It's like you're just accepting in the moment whatever this is fully. And it is the flavor that it is. And only when we decide we don't want it does it become pain.
That's a very, very insightful point. Can your people do that, huh?
Well, part of the training that we do focuses on that. I'm not saying every individual is different, but people who come to this work and come to Hospice Maui very soon find out that this is a very high value of ours and a priority. And if they can't handle that level of intensity, we have some tools to help them with that. And then it's more of a career decision at that point, whether that's something that they want to do. And of course, there's a culture, which means there's other people they're talking to. And they talk to other staff, and the other staff report how the intensity of the job increases the richness of their time with their family, because they're not just caught in whatever the little patterns are. They're seeing that this little whatever's going on, even if it's somebody disgruntled about their breakfast cereal or something, is only a moment. It's a flash in the pan, and it will not be there forever. And so they can savor whatever that is. And hospice work, to those people who tune into it and really want to make the most of it, can have that impact on your life.
So how long is the longest person worked there that has been able to be a person that's actually present at a passing of a loved one?
I think Evelyn Civarolo was with us 28 years.
Wow.
She did
She
it
just
for that
retired,
long.
right?
A couple of years ago.
Yeah. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long time. That's seeing a lot of people making a transition.
Yeah, it is. And it all comes down to what you see.
Mm-hmm.
If you see something that is like a horror movie, then you would be running from it, and you couldn't do that. But if you saw something that was filled with a transcendental level of beauty that you were perceiving because you weren't afraid of looking, then it would be very attractive to be a part of that, to help others see that, to enrich everyone's life with these kinds of perspectives and vision.
You do volunteer training twice a year?
Once a year.
Once a year?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and you just finished a group.
September.
And then how do you oversee all that? I mean, who's in charge of handling all the people who are volunteers? There's a huge amount of scheduling and deciding who goes to work with what, and that's a huge...
Yeah, we have 70 to 75 employees, and I say it because it depends on how you define an employee, but we have a lot of people working with us, and probably 100 volunteers.
Wow,
and
that is a lot.
And we have a full-time coordinator of volunteers who is a paid staff member, and her whole job is doing that, 40 hours a week of which patient wants what schedule and what volunteer might be available, and helping to coordinate and connect, plus communicating with the volunteers and getting their chart notes and their hours recorded, and it's a lot to it.
What's been the most valuable part of your, and I know it's like someone asked me what's your favorite song, but what's the most valuable part of when you look back over the last 30 years? How has it changed you? And what's been the most valuable part of that?
I don't know that that being in that role per se has changed me. I have, of course, grown over the years, and so being in that role has been a part of that growth. I can't say what it would have been if I had been in some other role in some other organization. So, difficult question to answer. But what I can say is that I get a tremendous amount of satisfaction knowing the quality that we bring in terms of the presence of the people who go into the homes, the love that they bring into the homes from complete, they are complete strangers to these family members and to the patient. Knowing that this is what we do every day and knowing how that enriches the community. And I hear and see the reflections of that in the comments that family members make to surveys that they're sent and that we get to read, or testimonials that they give, or what have you. So I would say, knowing that my small part in this is making sure that the values that focus on the mystery of dying, and not just healthcare, like, okay, we got to do this, we got to do that, make sure this is clean, make sure that's all that kind of thing. We don't. But by focusing on the values, we can see how what we do has changed people's experience of life.
And it really has, and there's been some people over the years that have lost a loved one, and the people have come to work or to support you in many ways after they've lost the loved one, because they have
as a
discovered,
volunteer or as a staff person. That's right.
Because they found something.
The richness that was possible.
And that makes a huge difference, because then they've already gone through this, and they can, through their experience, try to help and support other people as well.
That's right.
And I've heard so many people who've had such great things to say about Hospice Maui, and really are truly amazed at the work that's being done there, and understand how valuable it really is. It is interesting, because I know there's worldwide hospice groups, and around the world there's hospice groups, but each place has to be a little bit different, and there is a difference here on Maui, because you have such a wide variety of religions and ethnicity, and people who have come here, some very spiritual, some just with very, very simple backgrounds, but it's an amazing place with a lot of people who have aloha. They come here, and I'm sure it's got to be different than some of the other places in the rest of the country and around the world.
The way I think of it is that because Maui is a very attractive place to live, because of the weather, the oceans, the mountains and the ocean, and the recreation possibilities, and the reputation of the Hawaiian culture in terms of the depth of the true rootedness and aloha spirit. So many things make Maui desirable. The people who can come here and thrive, because as we know it's not easy at all, are among the most adventurous and most talented of people.
Good point.
And so then in the world of hospice, which is asking people to work with people who are dying, it tends to attract courageous, adventurous, talented people. So I would say one of the things is we have an unusually adventurous, willing group of individuals who are not afraid to have conversations, to witness challenging situations, to make difficult decisions, and participate in care that most people say, how can you do that? Most people say that.
Yeah, I just did today.
and the answer is the people who often come here. I would say right now, I think we've got 20 out of the 75 staff. We have 23 who are born and raised on Maui.
Wow.
We have 7 staff from different countries, from 5 different countries. And the rest, that leaves about 45 other people, are here from all over the United States and North America in general, Canada and North America. So we have a huge variety of people in our organization. And I would say the one thing that connects them is a deep sense of respect for people. I mean, they're not people who think they know everything. They don't have small-minded perspectives on things. They recognize that those who have traveled here have a lot of humility about coming to a place that is very exclusive in so many ways, and succeeding here at the in the goodwill of the people who came before them, whether they came thousands of years ago or just recently. Because it's an island, there is really a sense of, when you come here, you're joining a group of people who are here. It isn't like just sort of setting down in the middle of nowhere and you're just by yourself and you can have your pioneer spirit. It's not like that. It's very collaborative. The sense of ohana is something that is palpable.
You're absolutely right.
And so I would say that it takes an adventurous individual to come here and to deeply engage the culture and the mana of this place. I would say that hospice care, because of what it is, attracts the best of those attributes. So people with the best of those attributes work for us, and it makes it an exceptional place. So it's really less about anything that I've done and more about this island and who it attracts, and then the kind of people that this work attracts.
Having that, and you worked so hard, was about 6-7 years trying to build that hallway?
It was a long time.
Long time, I know. And it finally happened. And having that place with the beautiful view in that spot, do you have a sense of when someone's passing? I've been even in hospital rooms when the stories of when the person dies next and the people sense that spirit leaving. Do you ever feel that? I mean, you said over the last few years, 114 people?
104 in 12 months.
104 in 12 months. Do you get that sense of that? Has it changed all the dynamics of that space? No?
I don't think so. And what I heard from a Hawaiian healer who came there before the building was built, they said that was the edge of the sand hills, because, the sand there isn't sand like beach sand.
No.
It's rock.
Yeah.
It's rock made out of sand. It's called lithified. It's solid. And that was a stepping off point, similar to Black Rock over on the west side.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I've heard that from two different people saying
that
that this is the perfect place to have a hospice house because it is a stepping off point for the spirit. I've had two independent people who didn't know each other both say that about that place.
Well, you are at that coming down from Iao as well as the flowing out to the ocean, and there's all of that energy there, and plus there's a hospital down there. That's very interesting.
We're right up on the top of a hill.
Yeah.
And it just falls away very steeply all around us.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't, it doesn't feel, I'm not particularly sensitive to these sorts of things, but we bring in people periodically to do clearings and blessings who are sensitive to it. And they have all felt that it's a very, very strong energy that's there that holds the stability in the sense of what's happening so that it doesn't change readily or easily.
So you're getting to the point now, I know you've had some very good friends in the business who have retired. Craig from Holy Makua, right?
Tony Krieg, right.
Tony Craig, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And others, have you thought about retiring?
No, not really.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any particular plan. I feel I have a little bit of a cold today, so my voice is a little funky. But I don't have, I feel good. I'm strong and healthy, and my brain seems to be working at close enough to its old capacity that I'm able to still bring a lot of service. Well,
I'm very glad to hear that, because I have to say, you are needed, and hospice is needed, and hospice is very loved, and it's such an amazing gift to the community. And for many of the people who know that, who go, gosh, they feel good that it's there as that, option if they need it, and it's, and you go through so many things that we haven't even talked about, like a year after a person's passing, you send notes out to their loved ones.
Yeah, we have a bereavement program.
And you also sometimes have if people want it, a special ceremony where you can do a cleansing and oil over the body. That is just a beautiful blessing. That's again very unique, and like you said, the staff and the people that are very, very special. That makes hospice a very, very unique place and a very special place. And I really want to encourage people to support Hospice Maui by going to Dine Out Hospice Maui for the 10th annual Hospice Maui event. A lot of work goes into planning these events. I mean,
yes.
Is Angel? Who's doing the calls? I mean, there's a lot of calls going on and people making contact with these restaurants and making all these arrangements.
Angela Domingo
yeah.
works for us. She does a lot of that. Astrid Gruppenhoff
Right.
is the head of our advancement department in charge of this.
And so we're asking people to support hospice in a way that's fun, that's good, that draws people together. And maybe even conversations might come up, such as this conversation, which would be wonderful if people can go out and have a good time and talk about death and their experiences with loved ones.
And talk about planning for what they would like should they find themselves unable to make their wishes known. You know, in other words, advanced care planning.
It's very important. And so Central Maui, again, because we have been talking for an hour almost, Central Maui, Bistro Casanova, Brigit and Bernard's, Cupies, the Kitchen, McDonald's of Kahului, Millhouse and Tin Roof. Over in South Maui, Five Palms, Coconuts Fish Cafe, and also that's in Azeka and Kamaole. Monkeypods, Monsoon India, Nalu's, Pita Paradise, Wailea. Three's Bar and Grill, over there in West Maui, Cane and Canoe. Down the hatch, Frida's and Honu's, up there at Peter Elliman's. And then
Leoda's.
Leoda's, right there. It's such a unique little place right there in Oluwalu. McDonald's, Maui Brewing Company, Lahaina, Merriman, Kapalua, and that lovely spot overlooking the ridge there. That feels like a jumping off place as well. Pie, Artisan Pizzeria, Roy's and Teddy Bigger Burgers, and UpCountry and Paia, Café Mambo, and Casanova. Oh, you know what? I think you're right. Café Mambo is in Paia, I think. That's that other place. It's right there on Baldwin Avenue. You're correct. I think you said that. We'll check that. Casanova Italian Restaurant, UpCountry, of course. Colleen's in Haiku, Flatbread in Paia, and Kula Bistro and Polli's Mexican Restaurant. Some people I know do too. Some people I know do, maybe a lunch and a dinner or a breakfast and a lunch and make it a whole day of wonderful eating. You can always get food to go.
That's right.
You can space it out. You can have your poo-poos here and then have a lunch there, and then take a dinner to go or whatever. But it's a very special time, and it's something I actually look forward to because, you're very busy. I'm busy. We're all busy. But it's so nice to be able to stop and say, let's take a day and remember hospice and dine out for hospice. And I know you're going to be doing that.
I am.
And you'll probably see other people out there, too.
Probably
When,
will.
when you're out there, you'll probably see other people going, oh, yeah, I came here, too. And that's what draws the community together. And you can go to hospicemaui.org. You have a lot there on the site. It's a very nice site. People can look at all the programs you have and the staff.
Ways that they can support us.
There's many ways. So, yes, and hospice is a very important part of the community. And I just have to say, from the bottom of my heart, a big mahalo to you, Greg. You're very humble, but you do an amazing job. You really do. And I know the job you're doing it. And I'm very grateful you're there to keep doing what you're doing. So big mahalo to you and all the staff at
Thank you,
Hospice.
Cindy.